really like kind of sink it in. I didn't really believe in it. All I cared was, seeing a friend at church. During this time, it was very difficult for me, very struggling, because my mother and my brother were physically and mentally abusive, so towards me, and because they were stressed and they were just trying to adapt to a new country where they don't know anything, and obviously that would stress them. And back then, I was having a resentment towards them, but then now I understood what it's like, because I understand that they could be abusive, they could be physically and verbally abusive, because they were just hard to adapt in that new country, and they don't even know the language, right? But during that time, I always frequently ask the existence of God, whether I go to church to learn about, hear about the stories, but yet, I question his existence, because my life was, wasn't really positive here, right? It's all negative. And during this time, for 5-6 years, I was, mentally and physically and verbally abused, right? And I lived this way and wondering about the meaning of life. If it really fills with, stress and challenges and pain, what is the point of living this life, right? And as time passed, and during one of the New Year service at our church, my pastor said, if you truly want to discover Jesus, devote this year to knowing him. And during that time, I just, felt pointless, right? Felt purposeless. So at the time, I was praying to God, saying that, okay, so I'm going to devote this 1 year and all I have during this year. So please reveal yourself to me so I can truly believe in it and truly believe that you exist. And after that prayer, during that for almost 6 months, I almost lived at church, volunteering, working, with one goal in my mind, to know God, right? To truly believe in, truly see what other Christians believe in. But, 6 months passed, there was no result. I didn't see how other believers truly be faithful, because I didn't feel that way, and I don't know what they were believing in, and I felt devastated, frustrated, and I was reaching to a point where I doubted the existence of God. Then when I was about to give up in that 6-month period, there's one opportunity arose as a mission trip. So one of the church members invited me, because they're short on staff and they need more people to come for a mission trip. Although, I was burnt out spiritually, or if I can't really say spiritually, I didn't feel like attending, because, I truly thought that that time there was no God. And I remembered, my commitment for the prayer to devote my time to God. So I said a year, so I'm gonna say yes. So I attended, and I say yes to the church staff, and I prayed to God during this time, say that, God, this is the last chance. If there's no sign that you exist and you don't reveal yourself to me, I'm just gonna give up on my faith and not gonna attend church. And I went to the mission trip, and it was a mission trip for indigenous community, and we had a VBS, Vacation Bible School for the children's. And this mission trip turned out to be incredibly challenging and stressful and very painful, because we're short-staffed, and the children seems to increase in numbers daily, because it was 30, 40, 50, 60. Right? Every night, we would be stressing out, and our pastor that time urged us to pray and surrender everything to God for this moment. And we did that for hours and hours every night. And gradually, despite the challenges, so things are getting start to get easier. So it's things to get simpler and easier. Even though more children are invited to come out to the VBS, yet we didn't stress as much. And this was during that time, it felt like a miracle. It's like this is like one time that it's like the sign of miracle, because if we just did it on our own and didn't pray to God and try to surrender our life to God, or try like moment to God, then we couldn't handle it. It would just all fall apart. So it was really truly a miracle. But during that time, I didn't really recognize it. Didn't see the strength or the power. But after the mission trip, I began to reflect back to my life, because I was reflecting upon the mission trip, how it went, how it did, and start to reflect back to my life and realizing that there were just so many moments, whether there was positive or negative moments. I realized there's God, has been there for me this entire time, but I've been just ignoring His presence. And He was there from the deepest struggle, where I consider ending my life, right, to times where I face constant physical and mental abuse. And I recognize that I wouldn't have overcome those moments with my strength alone. But only through God and through Christ, I was able to endure and overcome. And I recognized it. It was clear and it was undeniable. And from then, I bowed down and cried out to God how I was just foolish, how I was just ignorant, just not recognizing His presence in my life. I realized how sinner I was, how much sin I've committed against God, and I was just dirty. And during that time, I confessed and repented all my sins to God. And during that prayer, I heard His voice. I was there the entire time. Now you see me. And this was like a parable where the father welcoming me back welcoming the sons back when they left. If you heard about the parable of Jesus where Jesus told there's king and the two sons. One of the sons left, but he came back because he lost everything, right? It was that kind of moment where despite all the son's mistake and rebellion against the father, he was still welcoming. And that was truly experiencing the love and grace. And what it's like to experience love and grace. Because I deserve to just get lost, deserve to be, in downfall, right? But God still chose me in the beginning, before everything. And then I recognized that, and from that moment on, I wanted to live my life for God and devote my life to Him, because He basically saved my life and now has ownership of my life. So during that time, I lived solely for Christ. And there's one of these verse, Galatians 2:20, it says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave Himself for me. Truly wonderful that my old life died with Christ, and now I'm living my new life with Christ after the encounter. And that's where my passion for Christ grew deeply and personally over the years. I started to seek Christ with the intention, with the purpose. And beforehand, I was just felt like, oh, I'm just gonna do this, whatever, right? But now I found my purpose. And I will never trade this experience, whether that's good or bad, whether I was depressed or whether I was, abused, I will go through that moment again as long as I'll be with God, And I would, for sure, to live that moment. And I am grateful all that moments, because without those moments, I wouldn't be with God. But yet, I come to God. And this reminds me of this verse, Philippians 3:8. Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ, Jesus my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish, in order that I may gain Christ. And that I recognize that, through all these moments, God has equipped me to be his witness. So all this, stressful, challenging time, he didn't just put them for no reason, nor no purpose, but for his glory, for his kingdom to know, right? That God gave me that moment so that I can be a witness for him, so that others can also truly see and be open to it, right? And since then, I served God, and I had only one hope in my life. So as long as I'm spreading the gospel, that's all that matters in my life. That's why I want to pursue missionary. So that's why I have a heart for missions and wanted to go out to spread the gospel. And it's important to remember that my experience itself does not grant me salvation. It is through faith alone that I have been saved. As Ephesians 2:8-9 says, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it's the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. So any of you guys there, if you haven't encountered Christ, don't worry. He's working through you, has a perfect timing. If God's timing wasn't perfect in my life, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys with my experience and sharing my experience with you guys. So trust in him and have a desire to know him deeper and in a personal level. Yeah? This is where you return to him. It's where you turn back from your old life, how you lived, but turn to what is hopeful, what is purposeful, rather than something that's purposeless. As I say that, don't try to do everything on your own, because there's needs of taking a time. Take a time to reflect on your moments, just to witness those moments in your life. And put that ownership of your life to God, and you will witness the beauty of grace. Because that 1 year I try to know, Christ, try to devote that 1 year, just like that. Just through that moment, I truly saw his grace. And lastly, the reason why I recognize this whole grace and this love in my life wasn't through my own thoughts or my own interpretation. But during time, I stayed close to the Word. It was inspired by the Word. I desired to learn who God was during that time. So don't make a mistake that, I don't have to read the Bible, or I don't have to stay close to the Word, as long as God, shows me that way. But rather, you have to continually invest that time to God, to know more about him, so that in your life, his grace truly overflowed in your life, and that you live for him, not for your own. And so that there was nothing that I've done to earn this salvation, but through the Holy Spirit who was working in me. Thank you.